Alright, kids, are you ready to hear a story? Yeah.
Welcome to Witch Toast and Other Tales. This story is called Toad in the Road. Once upon a time, there's a man named Oscar. He lived out in the country a long time ago. Oscar was pretty poor, so whenever he went anywhere, he mostly walked. And also because he was pretty poor, he lived in a shack in the swamp. So one day, he headed out of his house and went up the driveway and started walking down the road. And everything was hunky-dory and just fine. It was a beautiful day. When all of a sudden, a big old toad hopped out in the middle of the road. Now, that wasn't too unusual. There was a swamp to the left and a swamp to the right. The swamp was, of course, full of toads, and they crossed the road all the time. This toad didn't cross the road. He just hopped to the middle, turned to face Oscar, and stopped. Oscar saw it, of course, and thought it strange, but he simply stepped to go around it, and all of a sudden the toad barked at him. Not barked like a dog, barked like a man. "Hey, you!" Oscar was taken aback, being spoken to by a toad, and he wasn't sure what to make of it. But it seemed rude not to respond, so he said, "Hey, yourself, what is it?" The toad said, "This here is my road, and if you want to pass, you'll have to pay the toll." Huh? Oscar scoffed. "Not today, Mr. Wart, not today. I got places to go. Leave me be." And again he went to step around, but the toad gave a croak. And all of a sudden, the water to the left of the road and the water to the right churned and frothed as toads hopped and crawled out onto the road. Now there wasn't one toad in the road. There were 10,000. They covered the whole road, and Oscar really couldn't pass, not without stepping on them or off into the swamp. Toads aren't big, but 10,000 was a lot. So he decided he'd better be a little careful. He said, "What's all this about?" Once again, the toad said, "This here's my road. I'm king of the toads, and if you want to pass, you have to pay the toll." Oscar rolled his eyes, went ahead and asked, "All right, well, what is it you charge?" "And I don't have much money." And the toad said, "Hop on one foot and meow like a cat." "What? What are you talking about? What for?" "That's the toll." That was all the toad said. Oscar looked at the sun. He could see he'd be late for work if he didn't start moving soon, so he said, "Very well." And he stood on one leg and started hopping and meowing, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." And he put his leg down and said, all right, there, now let me pass." And the toads all jumped back in the swamp, and Oscar went on his way. He worked all day, and afterwards started back down the road to go home. But as he approached the place he'd seen the toads before, there was a big old toad waiting for him, standing in his path. It'd been a long day. He was tired and he wanted to go home. He wanted to deal with this. "Let me guess," he asked. "I'll have to pay the toll." "Yep," croaked the frog. So Oscar stood on one foot and started hopping and meowing. Meow, 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 meow. And then he stopped and he said, "All right, there you go." And he moved to go around the toad. And the toad said, Whoa. That was the toll this morning. It's changed now." Oscar was pretty annoyed. So he said, I don't have time for this. I'm tired and it's getting late." But as he went to start walking again, the toad gave out a croak, and 10,000 frogs poured out of the swamp, blocking his path forward. Oscar was exasperated and more than a little annoyed, so he said, "Fine, what is it this time?" Toad said, "I want you to get down on your hands and knees and bark like a dog." "Absolutely not," Oscar said. He had more dignity than that. "You must pay the toll," insisted the toad. Oscar was tempted to trample right through them. But something about the tone of the king toad and the fact that there were 10,000 of them gave him pause. Still, he had a bit too much pride to just get down and bark like a dog for some toad. So he figured he'd just go back the way he'd come and take the long way. It was only another mile or so. But when Oscar turned around, the frog croaked again, and 10,000 more toads came out of the swamp and blocked his path going back. He whipped around and said, "What's the meaning of this? Not only are you asking me to pay a toll on a public road that people built, by the way, now you're threatening me." Toad took one hop forward and looked at him and said, "This here's my swamp. I am king and you must pay the toll. You've already trespassed and you cannot leave until you do." And when he said that, the 10,000 frogs in front of Oscar and the 10,000 frogs behind him all took a big hop closer to him. Now Oscar got real nervous. 20,000 toads is a lot of toads, and moving all together like that, well, looked like they meant business. He wasn't happy about it, but it seemed he had no choice, so he got down on his hands and knees and he barked like a dog. Bark, 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 bark. Then he stood up, his face red with embarrassment and anger, and he said, "There, happy now? You have paid the toll. You may pass," said the toad. And Oscar went home. That was Friday, and Oscar wasn't working that weekend, and didn't really have a reason to take that road, the road with the toads. But even so, he left his house on Saturday morning and turned to walk down it. And this time, he had a great big pack on his back, with a cloth sack draped over it. And when he got to the same spot in that same road, he saw the toad waiting for him once again. He stopped a few feet from the toad and looked at him. The toad looked back. They stood there for a minute, and the toad said, "You must pay the toll." Oscar shook his head. "Not today, toad." The swamp bubbled and frothed as 10,000 frogs came out and gathered around their king. And another 10,000 did the same behind Oscar. "You will pay," insisted the toad. "Nope, you're not getting one hop, not one meow, not one bark. Not today, toad. Now get out of my way." The king toad croaked, and all the toads took one big hop closer. "This is your last chance," said the king of the toads. "You will pay the toll. You can't get away, especially not with that pack on your back. Pay the toll and nobody has to get hurt." Oscar looked behind him. 10,000 toady eyes and serious set toad faces. He looked in front of him. 10,000 toady eyes and serious set toad faces, plus the king's. Oscar's lip curled in a sneer and he spat on the ground. "Nah, I'm done with you. You take your filthy, warty, toady selves and you get out of my way. This is your last chance." The king toad's face twisted in anger. The bubble at his throat began to fill as he got ready to crow, but he never got the chance. Oscar reached back, and when his hand came forward, the cloth ripped off his backpack, revealing 2 large tanks. Attached to those tanks was a hose. Attached to the hose was a nozzle. Attached to the nozzle was a handle, which Oscar held in his hand, and on that handle was a trigger. And on that trigger was Oscar's finger, and he pulled it. A jet of white-hot flame erupted from the nozzle with a Instead of 10,001 toads in the road in front of him, there was a raging inferno. And he turned around and pointed his flamethrower at the toads behind him, who were standing there wide-eyed and stunned, and he said, "Boom!" And all the toads jumped back in the swamp and ran away. And they went home and had a pleasant lunch with his family. Moral of the story is this: if you keep getting in people's way, interrupting them going about their lives, insisting they degrade themselves and making a nuisance of yourself, well, they're going to take only so much before they give you something back. The end.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.